This was supposed to be the best rematch of the World Cup. But if you look carefully, you might see something strange. They don't really seem to be playing at all. Now, why would they do that? These two European teams would become embroiled in one of the worst cheating scandals football had ever seen. It would have giant consequences for the World Cup dreams for the North African country of Algeria, and every World Cup since then has been permanently changed by the events that unfolded that day. This is the Disgrace of Gijón. Only having recently emerged from 132 years of brutal French occupation, Algeria was in the process of reshaping its national identity. Sports and politics go hand in hand. And part of a country's pride is tied to how competitive they are in their sport of choice. And for Algeria, there's no game more beautiful than football. Under French rule, Algeria wasn't allowed to have a national team. That didn't really stop them from trying, though. Football was seen as an act of resistance, and once they gained independence in 1962, the national team was formed. For nations who love the sport, it's as though to have a strong football team is to have a strong country. And the best place to prove yourself? Of course, none other than at the FIFA World Cup. That's where the fiercest competition will be. Having a good showing on that international stage legitimizes you in the eyes of others who may have previously only locked eyes with you, just so you could see them turn their nose up. They can no longer ignore you. They may even feel threatened by you. But even just qualifying for the World Cup isn't easy, and for a country still healing from post-colonial wounds, the road ahead would be far from smooth. At this time, all of Africa was only allotted 2 slots in the World Cup, compared to 14 slots for Europe. 29 nations competing for these 2 slots. To say that each team was under immense pressure to perform would be an understatement. These qualifiers would be played in a knockout home and away format. This format is always rough for every participating team, as the constant travel wears you down more and more the longer the tournament goes. The Algerian team didn't really have the greatest record up to this point, and the other teams saw no reason why this year would be any different. Algeria started their qualifier journey with a bang, defeating Sierra Leone in an aggregate score of 5-3. With a home field advantage and a roaring crowd on their side, Algeria would best Sudan 2-0 in the first match. The away game saw Algeria seemingly playing against the crowd just as much as the opposing team. Despite the pressure, they would be able to tie the game at 1-1, advancing to the next round. Algeria, with this built-up momentum, breezed through their third round against Niger, and find themselves advancing to the final round. Win this, and they get to make their debut on the global stage. But they would be facing their toughest opponent yet. They would be playing against the Titans of Team Nigeria, who at this year's African Cup had bested Algeria 3-0 to win the tournament. Nigeria ended their dreams once before, and they were in the best position to do it again. It would seem that Team Algeria hadn't let go of last year's defeat. They went on to beat Nigeria in a shockingly decisive 4-1 aggregate. They had done it. They qualified for the World Cup for the first time ever. It was time to show the world what they'd been missing. They had entered the first group stage. The draws to decide which teams are in what group are sometimes just as intense as the games. Depending on what group you're drawn into, your journey can basically end before it even started. And this draw wouldn't go in the favor of Algeria. West Germany were considered one of the favorites to win the cup, having already won 2 cups and 2 UEFA championships, one of which was the most recent tournament. At the last World Cup, West Germany were making a strong run to the top, which was ultimately interrupted in a surprising 3-2 upset by Austria in what's known as the Miracle of Cordoba. The group would be rounded out by Chile. This was their 6th appearance at the World Cup, with mixed showings at previous cups. Having placed 3rd at the 1962 tournament, the term wildcard fitted them pretty well. All eyes were on these 2 teams. On paper, they were the strongest in the group, and after the upset in Cordoba, their rematch was highly anticipated. No one would imagine that Algeria, the inexperienced newcomer, had any chance against such opponents. But as much as Algerians love football, they might love proving Europeans wrong even more. And they would get their chance, as their first match was to be played against none other than West Germany. Every sport has its fair share of trash talk, but the Germans thought so little of their Algerian competition that the comments they made seemed to reveal some deeper sentiments. In pre-match press conferences, West Germany's manager joked that if they didn't beat Algeria, they would jump on the first train back to Munich. One player would famously comment, "We will dedicate our 7th goal to our wives and the 8th to our dogs." And yet another player would comment that he would play against Algeria with a cigar in his mouth. Team Algeria did not take these insults lightly. These players, after all, were the heirs of those who in 1958 had given up professional careers in France to participate in Algeria's War of Independence. Because of this history, the bond between the Algerian national team and our people is uniquely strong, and we took the comments by the Germans before the game as a slur on our population. We were already a tight-knit group, but we were given extra motivation by the Germans, especially as we were very conscious that 1982 was the 20th anniversary of our independence. We were determined to uphold the dignity of our people. The environment was electric. The Germans were completely caught off guard. Algeria did their homework and they knew exactly how to counter the German offensive. Germany would compensate with a strong defense and the first half would end 0-0. The Germans were going to have to work a little harder to achieve those 8 goals they mentioned. Cracks were beginning to show in the German defense. Algeria would keep up the pressure when finally, in the 54th minute, this was going to be much harder than the Germans thought. In the 67th minute, Germany would equalize the score. This did little to discourage Algeria, who immediately responded with one of the cleanest displays of football of the entire tournament. Once again in the driver's seat, Algeria would hold on to their 2-1 lead with a vice grip. In an astonishing upset, they had bested one of the top teams in the world and became the first African team to beat a European team at the World Cup. As teens, many of us had traveled and played against Europeans. We knew they were not better than us. Despite this being a perfect opportunity to return the trash talk hurled their way, the players took a different approach. We respected the German team and we respected their country. We were just delighted that we had also made them respect ours. Unlike West Germany, Austria had been paying attention to Algeria's rise to the international stage. Perhaps left drained by days of celebration after their victory over West Germany, Algeria would lose to Austria 0-2. Hoping to regain control, Algeria would start their match against Chile strong, gaining a 3-0 lead. Algeria, prioritizing offense, would let in 2 goals from Chile in the second half, but would still secure the win. Algeria and Chile had completed all of their games. While Algeria had an amazing showing so far, they hadn't secured their advancement into the next stage. Their fate rested on the result of the last match for this group, the highly anticipated rematch between Austria and West Germany. At this point, it's important to explain the format for this tournament. The system is points-based. Every win nets you 2 points, a draw only 1, and nothing for a loss. The 2 teams with the highest points will advance to the next round. In the event of a tie, then the goal difference is compared. And this number is just the difference between the number of goals a given team has scored versus how many they've had scored against them. At this time, Algeria is in second place in the group. If Austria beats West Germany, Algeria advances. What's a little more complicated is the possibility of West Germany beating Austria. West Germany need to win in order to advance, but even if they win, due to the current point standing, the number of goals they score has very different outcomes for the group. In the event of a West Germany win, should they score 4 or more goals, both they and Algeria will advance to the next round. A win with 3 goals would mean Austria and Algeria would have to play a tiebreaker. But a win with only 1 or 2 goals would see both West Germany and Austria advance, and Algeria's historic run would come to an end. Algeria's fate was riding on the results of the rematch for the Miracle of Cordoba. West Germany opens the match with the intense offense they're known for, and after 10 minutes of this, West Germany gets the first point on the board. It was from here on out that something in the air changed. Both teams just stopped playing. When a team had possession, they simply passed the ball amongst themselves. If an opposing player came close to that ball, it would just be kicked back. They were stalling. They were cheating. This was collusion. Seemingly trying not to make it too obvious, some players would bother to tackle each other, and when they got a shot on goal, it missed in spectacular fashion. Everyone watching was furious. Mocking chants filled the stadium. Chants of "out, out," and "let them kiss" were notable. Algerian fans burned and waved cash at the teams, implying that they were bought and paid for. It wasn't just the audience, though. A German commentator said, "What's happening here is disgraceful and has nothing to do with football. You can say what you like, but not every end justifies the means." And an Austrian commentator is noted to have asked audiences at home to turn off their TVs, and it seems both commentators refused to speak for the rest of the broadcast. It was over. West Germany and Austria saw to it that both of them would advance to the next round at the expense of Algeria. Algeria's run had come to an end, not because they weren't good enough, but by match fixing. A local Spanish paper would actually run the match report in the crime section. Another would dub the match El Anschluss, referring to the annexation of Austria in 1938. German fans gathered outside the team's hotel, reportedly throwing eggs in protest, and the players responded by throwing water bombs from their balcony. The head of the Austrian delegation would go on a despicable rant and say, "Naturally, today's game was played tactically. But if 10,000 sons of the desert here in the stadium want to trigger a scandal because of this, it just goes to show that they have too few schools. Some sheik comes out of an oasis, is allowed to get a sniff of World Cup air after 300 years, and thinks he's entitled to open his gob." Team Algeria would laugh it off. As one player commented, "We weren't angry, we were cool. To see two big powers debasing themselves in order to eliminate us was a tribute to Algeria. They progressed with dishonor, and we went out with our heads held high." Algerian football officials filed a formal complaint, and FIFA was forced to investigate. FIFA concluded their investigation by declining to take any action, saying that they had found no rules to have been broken. Many found this incredibly suspicious, and it doesn't help that at the time the vice president of FIFA was also the president of the German Soccer Federation. Despite stating that they found no wrongdoing, FIFA would actually change the rules due to these events. They made it so that in future World Cups, the final matches would have to be played at the same time, so that teams wouldn't have the knowledge necessary to collude. Which is really funny when you think about it. It's basically FIFA saying, "You're right, that's a really concerning cheating method. We'll change the rules to make sure no one can use that in the future. Oh, but those guys over there? No, they didn't use that method, I'm sure." FIFA has issued many controversial rulings over the years. Most recently, if you remember, Russia was banned due to war with Ukraine. But Israel is still allowed to play despite murdering hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, and the amount of footballers amongst them numbering at least several hundreds, and of all ages. So they're not exactly known for being consistent. For many, it's a frustrating end to the story. For the underdog to have a meteoric rise, only for their chance at a title to be stolen. The game played that day is now known as the Disgrace of Gijón. Some people may say that the losing team always feels hard done by, but in this instance, it's important to remember that it wasn't just Algeria fans that recognized it for what it was. Everyone did. Still, to this day, it's left a bitter taste in the mouths of many, but not everyone thinks of it in such a negative light. Our performances forced FIFA to make that change, and that was even better than a victory. It meant that Algeria left an indelible mark on football history. Thanks for watching.